everyone. Thank you so much for clicking on this broadcast. I'm not going to waste any time. I'm just going to get right on into it because I'm very excited to talk to the lady I'm going to be speaking to today. She is a financial journalist from the UK. She's an author. She's written over 38 books, I believe. She's a speaker, a TV presenter. You've seen her on BBC, on ITV, Channel 4, and of course, I watch her a lot on GB News. She has a column for the Daily Mail called Miss Money Saver, and she's also the founder of a money-making website called moneymagpie.com. So we're going to get into all of that. But first of all, let's just take a little look at her in action. This is her on GB News.
The way society is structured, the way protest is managed by the minute, the way people are cancelled and silenced, what can we do?
Well, what I've noticed is that if we just refuse, if we become refuseniks, then it's quite surprising that you actually don't need that many people to refuse to comply before those in power who are, let's be honest, basically the same as us. They've just been, put somewhere else, and probably I think they're more hypnotized than the rest of us, in all honesty. They suddenly find that they can't do what they thought they could. And we've seen this, certainly in the last 3 years. There have been a number of people who've said, no, I'm not going to wear the mask, no. And there are more and more people who are saying, well, if you don't take my cash, I won't shop here. And I've heard of shops, turning around.
So maybe the people have the power after all. I'm not too sure. Well, let's bring Jasmine Birtles in now. Jasmine, hello.
Hello there. Hi.
Thank you so much for talking with me this evening.
Pleasure.
So nice. Oh, great. So in that clip, it was very inspiring in a way, because basically what you're saying is maybe if the people all just took a stand, the pushback would be more significant.
Absolutely. And the thing that I've learned over the last, well, it's now 3.5 years, isn't it? Nearly 4 years, is that it really doesn't take everybody. In fact, it doesn't even take half of us. It doesn't even take a quarter. It's 20%. And this has been shown in various studies of social action. If just 20% of the people or of a particular group stands and says, this is not good, we're not putting up with it, we're going to do this, then that is enough to turn everything around.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of standing up, I mean, you are a financial journalist. You have a big sort of, investment, so to speak, in helping people make a bit of money. And obviously people are feeling the pinch now. A lot of people were thrown out of their jobs. So obviously, if you were a nurse, you had that income. But if you are put on unpaid leave, like so many were, you don't have that income. And then now you have that combined with inflation. I was wondering if I could get your thoughts on inflation. For me, I feel like inflation is not an accident. These things are done on purpose. Well, what is your take on inflation?
Yeah, it's certainly not an accident, as you say. It's not something just, oh, look, we just found inflation. It is created by governments, or particularly by central banks, which kind of means government, really, in most cases. You could say that it's something that is accidental, in that at the time, the central banks, governments, got really panicked and didn't know what to do. And the answer always is to print more money. Or you could say that this is all part of a big, terrible scheme to eat away the middle classes in particular. To be frank, I don't know which of those. I suspect it's probably on the whole more stupidity than intent. But this is the thing, that when you create more money, when you print money, when you do what they call quantitative easing, you create inflation, because you create so much money, it has to go somewhere. We've been doing it for a while, and it was ramped up in 2008 when we had the big, financial crash, the global, almost, well, at least in the Western countries, global financial crash. And that's when they started it. The money then that they created went into the stock market and into property in all sorts of countries, certainly in Britain, I'm sure in Canada, certainly in America. it went into investments. So basically it went into the pockets of the bankers, really. The difference that happened with the lockdowns, I will not call it pandemic. I don't consider that we've had a pandemic. The lockdowns, the difference there was that it was given to us, individuals, into our pockets, and we spent it. And that has created the inflation. We have seen inflation in house prices since 2008. We've seen inflation in the stock market because of the investing, but now we've got inflation all over the place, largely because, or primarily, I would say, because of the money printing, but also because of the problems, the supply chain problems that we had due to lockdowns.
Right. I mean, when you brought up 2008 and the financial crisis with the mortgages, the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac thing, and when you talk about lockdowns and them giving us money, it's like they've manipulated us into drowning ourselves a little bit, and then we've got to climb back up. And they've done this to us. Like, what business did they have giving a mortgage to everybody? Right? You have to sort of qualify for a mortgage, and then that's created this enormous housing problem. And the other thing they're doing is the petrol prices, is just gas. Raising your gas this way, the gas price is a great way to hide inflation. And all it does is boost up your grocery price, and on it goes. I'm very frustrated.
Well, you and most other people, to be frank. I mean, talking about absolutely oil prices, and of course that's been affected by the ridiculous Ukraine war, which we should never have had. We should not be part of, in my opinion. It's a war. I've said it from the start that the West cannot win, and it's just a continuous thing. So that has badly affected oil prices, gas prices, we call gas, and food, of course. And food is another one. And now this I think is very weird and very suspicious, that various billionaires, and we can name a few, Bill Gates, Bezos, those type of people, are buying up farmland, while at the same time, for example, in Holland, in the Netherlands, farmers are being told to get, they're just being kicked off their land, and it's supposed to be used for doing other things than having fertilizer and growing food for the public. It's very, very weird. And, when we see so many in America, we keep seeing food production companies, factories being blown up and burnt down. There's something particularly wrong going on across the West when it comes to food production, which can only put prices up, I think.
Yeah, we're doing a thing here in British Columbia where we're putting ridiculous watering restrictions onto farmers, and that's destroying their crops, and it's just causing all kinds of problems. But you're right about the food factories blowing up. The thing is, the problem is, you and I both know, having been worked in the news, that these are things that the news is meant to cover, so that it gets into the general consciousness of people. But if you go ask your neighbor, hey, did you hear about this food factory that blew up in the US? They're likely to not know.
Well, absolutely. I was just speaking to a Gen Zer today. Bless them, they're the worst. They are the most naive, the most gullible. I have seen studies about scams and frauds, and always you would think it would be the older people who are the most at risk. It's actually the under 25s who are the most likely to fall for scams. And the big scam that they're all falling for, of course, is that whatever they read online that's the knowledge bank, and their knowledge is being restricted. Our knowledge is restricted so horribly by Google, which is what most people use, and also Bing, of course, the Microsoft search engine. These search engines, if that's where we're going, we haven't a hope of finding out what's happening. One thing I was saying to this lovely girl today, it was about East Palestine, Ohio, because she was mentioning climate change, and I was saying, really though, really? And I said, look, I'm very concerned about pollution. I'm not concerned about carbon, but I am concerned about pollution. I said, have you heard about what happened at East Palestine, Ohio? And she hadn't. And I said, well, it was a huge disaster. It was, to me, it's akin to Exxon Valdez, to have that train full of toxic chemicals, killing all the animals and the fish that it went into, and then having that enormous mushroom cloud that was created when they thought it would be a good idea to set fire to it all, and that hardly, I mean, it got a bit of mention in the mainstream, but really very little. It only lasted for a few days, and then that was it. It was gone. And it is insane when you see, as you say, you and I are journalists, we're supposed to tell the news, but we don't anymore. Mainstream media doesn't do that anymore.
We don't. You're so right. What would have been, that is an Exxon Valdez proportion of a news story. And it's meant to, look, we still know Exxon Valdez to this day. How many people know about East Palestine? So what the news is doing, what the traditional news channels are doing, is they have an intent to misinform.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep people ill-informed, and you keep people brainless, not knowing anything. That's why it's so frustrating to me. I don't know if I could just talk to you about that for a second, but it feels like everything has the Maui wildfires, the Russia-Ukraine war, this Hamas-Israeli war, everything, the gender stuff, everything has two sides. And we're either meant to walk around being dumb, or we're arguing with one another. In your lifetime, have you ever seen the news presented in this way?
No, never. I've been saying this quite a lot recently, that in my lifetime, as you say, I have never seen media be as bad as it is now. And in fact, this is why some friends and I set up something called News Uncut on Substack. And thank you, Anita, for writing a couple of things for us. We'll get you to write some more. Basically, because we are so embarrassed and ashamed at our compatriots, the so-called journalists that we've worked with, who are just, it's a hypnotism, as I've been saying, they are mesmerized, they're hypnotized, but the ones at the top, they know, and they're being told by governments and by their advertisers, big pharma, definitely, big tech, all of those, you've got to talk about this, you mustn't talk about that. This is ridiculous. Admittedly, this kind of thing has always happened to a degree. In this country, in the UK, we've always had very partisan media. You have the right-wing press and the left-wing press, but you still, on the whole, have had genuine reporting. Now, there's sort of left-wing, right-wing, but not really. Left and right are the same now. It's more mainstream and alternative, and the alternative, that area is actually growing, and there's some really interesting stuff, but we'll see over time which ones stand the test of time.
Yeah, it's true. It's just gone by the wayside in a way that I've never seen before, where the sort of going after the story and being that intrepid journalist, you don't even have to be intrepid. You just have to report the other side, and that's completely lacking. And it just feels all like propaganda. But thank goodness, as you mentioned, News Uncut. I encourage people to look for that. I have written articles. I could write more in the future too.
Yes, I think go onto Substack and put News Uncut, and there it is. Yes,
it'll just pop right up. Yeah, that's the easiest way. Yeah, so I know that you work so hard on News Uncut, and you and Mark Sharman spearhead that, and you've done so much. So, and the other thing is, it's also important to support independent media too. We don't have a network backing us. We don't go to work and collect a paycheck. We have to scratch around for it. So I would say support you, and support independent media however we can.
Exactly. And part of the problem, as you know, with journalism, and it's been a problem for a good 10, 20 years, I would say, is that there's less and less money put into it. And good journalism actually costs more money than bad journalism, because for good journalism you need to put the time in, for actual investigative stuff it can take months to get the story out, and whereas the sort of journalism that most people want to read is what the Kardashians are doing, and has Britney Spears come back, or all that kind of nonsense. So in a way we get the journalism that we deserve, particularly because of the internet. And as you know, with the free model with the internet, that's meant that so many people can get information totally for free. And so that's what they expect. So what we're seeing, and have been for a few years now, what we've been seeing with the mainstream media is that there's so little money there. They're chasing the dollar all the time. They're having to be nice to advertisers. And they've got journalists basically rewriting press releases because that's all they've got time to do.
Yes, they don't give them any time to actually work on a story, pursue anything, pursue any angles. It's hack and slash, day of, file your story, do a radio hit. I mean, they work them to death.
Yeah.
And oftentimes these reporters are just regurgitating information and not pursuing information. That's what I saw. From. But speaking of news, and because you do know a lot about money and how things work, I wonder if we could just touch on a little bit, I don't know, your thoughts on sort of the division being created with the Hamas and Israel situation. A lot of people are pinning Hamas as like this terrorist organization attacking Israel out of the blue. And there's so many facets to that story. We could talk all day, but what do you know and have any insight on funding? Or I've heard that Israel created.
Yeah, it certainly did. It's one of those crazy things that America's brilliant at doing this, creating enemies for itself. And of course, Britain, before, when we were ruling the waves, we were brilliant at that as well. I mean, it's our fault, frankly, that there's a problem in the Palestinian area in Gaza.
It is.
Yeah, we set it up.
I encourage, what? I must say, I was so ignorant about it my whole life, because a lot of it, it's like, oh, it's an over there problem. But it's not an over there problem. And once you do just a little bit of digging, you will see that the British promised the Palestinians, the Arabs, the land many times, like from the 40s onwards, and those deals fell through. And then somebody made a promise to the Israelis, and that's anyway, go on. Yeah.
But yes, so essentially, I mean, you'll remember that back in 60s, 70s, we had the PLO run by Yasser Arafat, who, by the way, this is entirely apropos of nothing, but in the 90s, I used to know a lovely elderly lady, Scottish elderly lady, former doctor, who did quite a lot with refugees at the UN. And she told me that in the 50s, I think it was, she lived in Egypt, and Yasser Arafat was her gardener, interestingly. So I always think of her when I see and hear about Arafat.
That's funny. She might have some stories, but anyway, yeah.
Yes. So Yasser Arafat ran the PLO, and as I say, this is exactly the sort of thing that the Americans did do. The Israelis at the time thought, right, we need to get rid of the PLO, and so they supported what were essentially former Muslim Brotherhood people who created this competitor, if you like, to the PLO. And so Israel was putting money and support into that and creating a monster. As I say, America keeps doing this. I mean, you look at ISIS, that was created by America. In fact, I do recommend a book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Have you heard of that one?
No.
It's worth reading. I'm a book. I like listening to books. It is fascinating and depressing because this guy worked since I think the 60s, 70s onwards for a few decades, essentially for the CIA. But it was a front. It was a sort of company. Various they would set up companies around the world, and they would essentially cause mayhem in countries that wouldn't play ball, that wouldn't basically go, yeah, all right. It was a protection racket. The CIA, as far as I can tell now from his book, is a protection racket. So if they wouldn't do what the CIA wanted, they would mess things up. They would blow things up. They would assassinate, whoever it was. And he was working in there. And it's worth reading.
You're so right. The U.S. and the West creates the enemies and then creates the reason to go after them. Oh, ISIS, we got to go after this, and then innocent civilians suffer.
Exactly, and this is the issue that I find with the Israel-Palestine problem. I mean, you were saying earlier that we keep being told you have to pick a side. Well, I can't, most of the time, and I certainly can't with Israel and Palestine. Certainly, when it comes to Hamas, I think Hamas are evil. But, you look at the way that the Palestinians are living, and that's impossible. Of course, that's got to change. I have a lot of Jewish friends, and I think Israel's done amazing things, but the government is disgusting. I mean, what they've done to their own people, forcing, the vaccinations on them. There's a big argument, and I've heard it several times from different people, including Israelis, that there's something that smells really wrong about the Hamas attack. Many people, including people who've worked for IDF, people who were in Mossad, are saying, no way would Israelis not know that the Israeli government not know that something was going to happen. No way. Now, I don't know. It's out of my remit, but it feels so ridiculous that Israel, the most strongly guarded country in the world, would not know that this attack was happening. You can't help thinking something wrong here.
Yes, I've heard that fence, that even if a pig wanders up to the fence, Mossad knows about it. Their intelligence knows about it. So how do you get this army of Hamas coming to drop those bombs and what have you? And also, they should be having a ceasefire. They should be having peace talks. They shouldn't be ramping it up and then denying water and electricity to innocent Palestinians.
Yes. I mean, if you want to create more death and destruction later on, that's a brilliant way to go about it, to, as you say, to deny water and all of this. And there are voices who are trying to say what you're saying on both sides, and saying, come on, we can't do this. I was impressed by an MP, a politician, an Israeli politician, a lady who said, a child is a child on either side. And then another politician said, no, but the Palestinian children brought it on themselves. What? Kind of insanity is that? And this is the problem. And I don't know about you, but in the UK, it's very difficult to say, look, I'm supporting both sides. There's still a lot of people are saying, yes, you're either with us or you're against us. No, that's not the way it happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's lunacy. It's lunacy. Like, for everything, you're with us, you're against us. You're homophobic. You're this. You're anti-vax. This. It's like we are not in a good place in this world, and if we don't seek out information for ourselves and support each other's logical opinions, we're not going in a good way at all.
No, we're not. No, and I do think, and this is sort of an unusual thing to say, but I do think that what we need as a world is more what I would describe as spirituality, or rather Christianity, in my view. That we need the oil of a higher sense of life. That you use this oil to stop people rubbing together and creating friction. So it's that sort of that oil of tolerance and forgiveness and goodness and unselfishness. All of these just basic, spiritual qualities, that sort of thing. That's what stops this sort of escalation in its tracks, and that's what I'd like to see, to be honest.
Yeah, this less arguing and more proper information prevailing. I mean, I don't know, we're doing our part. I do want to bring in your website just to show people sort of what you get up to. Can you tell me a little bit about the Money Magpie?
Yeah, it's something I set up a few years ago. Yes, there it is. Because I wanted something that was an holistic approach to money. Because at the time, all the money websites I saw were either about saving money or they were about investing. But I've always been freelance. All my career, I've been freelance. And I spent a lot of my time making some extra money on the side. I've done waitressing, I've sold stuff on the side. I've done all sorts of entertainment. I've done babysitting. I've made things for people, all sorts of things. And I've, it's helped me keep going when there hasn't been journalism work or, the sort of normal work that I do. these extra little bits have really helped. So that was something that I wanted to really push in the website, that you can absolutely, saving money is really good, but you can make extra money. And there are loads of fun ways, like being an extra, being a film extra. That's a great way to make money, particularly if you're a student, or you're working on a book or something. You can go get paid to sit around. Dog walking, I love the idea of that. All sorts of things, as well as saving money. So it covers saving money, making money, and then investing. I'm a big advocate of investing, and so we've got sort of lots of training on there on how to invest.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised when I had a look at the website. It's just full of loads of practical information divided into categories that are helpful. It's about what you can do. Can you do something online? Can you pick up an extra job? Can you do this? Can you? It has really practical information for people. So yeah, I really encourage people to check it out. And one other thing, while I have you, what is one thing you want people to know, like the average lay person to know? You know how we say that some people are awake and some people are sleeping. Yeah. What would you want to say to the layman when they hear the words or the term digital ID and CBDC? What do you want people to know about that?
My prime concern is they're concerning. It's authoritarianism, it's surveillance, it's control. So CBDC, as you've mentioned, is a central bank digital currency. Now, this is different from a cryptocurrency, but it does have a lot of similar elements because it's fully digital. Whereas when it comes to cryptocurrencies, the way cryptocurrencies mostly work is they are decentralized. So there's no central authority that ratifies transactions and says how much money has been spent. It's all recorded on lots and lots and lots of computers around the world, like in a big circle, if you like. But the idea of a central bank digital currency, it kind of says it in the title. It's everything should go through a central authority and be monitored centrally. So you have a lot of the clever elements of cryptocurrencies. For example, the cryptocurrency Ether, which runs on Ethereum, the Ethereum network, is programmable money. So you can create money that can only be spent in certain shops or only be spent at a certain time. Or it's money that can disappear after a certain time. You could have it for 2 weeks and then, it disappears. It's all clever. Yes. Worrying.
That's not good. Like they can take it away from you.
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
So in theory, although, our central government here in the UK, it said, we wouldn't do this. But in theory, you could, as a government, you could say, right, your money, you can only spend it on vegetables. You can't spend it on meat. And you can only have one flight a year. So, we'll program your money to make sure that you can only have one flight. So, all these governments are going, we wouldn't do that. No, us, really? Oh, come on. But the fact is that there's the potential for it. And that's the concern that I have. And it's already, let's be honest, it's already being done to some extent in China, where there is, a lot of control over what people do, where they go, who they speak to, and certainly what they spend on. So it's clearly already being done and could easily be done here in the West.
Yes, if you're a journalist, I think in China, and you're sort of reporting things that they don't like, they can stop you from buying a train ticket. They can stop you from buying maybe things, so we don't want that. So when people hear CBDC, it maybe think control, like this is a way to control you. And same with digital ID, where they control what you spend. Sometimes I don't know what to call them, but my normal friends, my unawake friends, ask me why they would do this. Why wouldn't you want capitalism and stuff? And what do you think the answer is? Is why this control?
Well, I think one of the problems that we have at the moment, which some are awake to and many aren't, is that our money in real terms isn't worth anything really now. What we call fiat currency. This is money. The word fiat means an announcement, and dollars, pounds, euros, yen, etc. These are fiat currencies because their central banks or their central governments say, this is worth that amount. And we all go, oh, all right then, fair enough. And that's basically, what it's based on. It used to be based on gold, but that went last century. And because of all the money printing, our pounds, our dollars, our euros really aren't worth what they say they're worth on the top. In fact, maybe 1%, maybe literally 1% of what they used to be worth. And at some point, this is going to come crashing about our ears. It's a big hot air bubble at the moment, and it's going to come crashing about our ears at some point. And I think the idea, the plan of some people, although doesn't seem to be working, is that in order to cope with that crash, they want to control all the money supply, the money spending, so that you don't have a free for all, and that they still have control. So that's my sense of it. Certainly control of us politically, socially, economically, and as a sort of, if you like, a safety net or a prison, depending on how you see it, for when the financial system crashes.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. If there's less of us, you can control us, and you can maybe get control of the money, which seems is not the way we grew up. We thought,
No.
we can flourish in money and capitalism, yay! But it doesn't seem to be going that way. It seems to be crushing. So I want the average person to know that. I want people to think about that. So, what is the best way to follow what you're doing, Jasmine? How can people follow you?
Well, good point. Now, I'm on Twitter. They call it X. I call it Twitter. I'm Jasmine with an E. I got on 2006, so I got the Jasmine. So you can follow me there, or Instagram. I'm Jasmine Birtles, because I didn't get the Jasmine there. And same on LinkedIn. But yeah, follow me there. And do, as you say, sign up to moneymagpie.com. We have various newsletters. You can learn something. You can make some money.
I will. And yes, and I follow you on all these places, and I'm a great fan of your work and everything that you do for the world. Honestly, if people go to News Uncut and follow you, people will learn what's going on, and that's what we need is good information, not poor information. We need good information. So I encourage everybody to keep up with Miss Jasmine Birtles, because she's quite awesome. And thank you so much for talking to me today.
Pleasure. Great to see you, Anita. Thank you.
All right. See y'all later. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you found value in it, please like and subscribe and share it out. If you can make a contribution to my platform, it is so appreciated. You'll find me on PayPal at Anita Keeps Talking. You can donate through my website, anitakrishna.com. You can find me at Give, Send, Go, and all of these links will be provided in the description box below. Thank you so much for your love and support and engagement. I love reading the comments. Have a great day, stay strong, and I'll speak to you all in my next video.
Do you need more cash? Or have you always wanted to start an online business? Well, we are here to tell you that there's a new way to learn some new skills that can earn you an extra $500 to $5,000 per month. On top of this, you will also be helping others, and this opportunity is perfect for beginners. It's all through a new digital marketing course called Learn and Earn Profits Online, brought to you by Nice Guy Marketing. Want to know more? Visit our website or email us today.